But God, hey, there's a lot of places you could have chose to be here, and you chose to be here. Thank you for that, and God will bless you for it. I've got a whole back row of support up there. Thank you, guys. My name is Kyle, and I'm going to talk today. Continue the sermon series. The sermon series this month has been on life on mission, and I'm going to review that. We got a lot going on today. I was joking earlier. The devil's already tried to show up. We have a baptism later today. Well, that was leaking on this beautiful wood floor, and I was joking with John. I was telling him we need to take communion first. If it starts leaking again, everybody can just take their communion glasses and make a line out the door. But we fixed it. JB will fix about anything. But anyway, life on mission. I want to review a little bit because again, we've been doing this all month, and to kick it off, we started with John and Rita Farley, missionaries to Romania. They came to share the testimony. Rita had a beautiful testimony, and so we actually got to listen to what real life missionaries do. Missionaries to Romania, a foreign country. The next week, John picked up, and he wanted to go over missionary work, missions, and talk about what that is, define it a little bit. And just to recap, a missionary is a person who is sent by a church into an area to carry on evangelism or other activity as educational hospital work. And that's a Webster definition since about 1600. And we know Chad, being a doctor, he's gone a lot of places to do not just spread the gospel, but to help people, that kind of missionary work. And he said when he was up here, we got two mission groups in this church already that are planning mission trips. But today, and to go on a little bit further, John, he focused on two things that second week of this sermon series. Two things we need to know. He said, one, you need to know that you, if you are born again, spiritually filled child of the King, you are called to mission. You are called. And he said, two, when you know that, you need to know that you need to be obedient. And that was the focus of that sermon series. Last week, unfortunately I wasn't here, but we had several people from the congregation, several people of this body, share their testimony in mission work. And the whole premise behind that was so that everybody could see, it doesn't matter what your age is. We had a large age range of people that were up here sharing that from all different walks of life. And the premise behind that was so that you could see that no matter where you're at in your life or what you're doing, what your age is, you can be on mission for God. So that's the review. Today, I want to talk about how to mission. We talked to missionaries, we talked about what missionary work looks like, we talked about who can do it. I want to talk about how to mission today. So to start, I'm a military background. I like tying everything to military aspect because when it comes down to it, whether you realize or not, everybody's in a war right here, right now. There's a spiritual warfare going on over this place that I could not fathom to describe right now. I couldn't do it. If we could see what was going on around us, if we could see what we can't see right now, just like Elijah's helper could, he saw, chariots of fire and everything. If we could see what was going on around us right now, I dare say that we would be incapacitated just because our gray matter couldn't take it. There's a real war going on right now. I know you're sitting in a padded chair, some of you on hardwood benches, but there's a real war going on right now. And me having a military mindset, I like to tie those things together. There's some people that were in a small group of mine way back when, and they know how that goes. Now, God's tactics and our tactics are different things. If God told me to jump in the tank and drive around Baghdad 7 times, and then jump out on the 7th time and blast my iPod as loud as I could, it's a Jericho reference, I would laugh. Until, hey, remember who's telling you to do this. But, so the tactics are different. God is God and he can do anything, but a lot of the concepts are the same. So in the Army, on the Army side of the house, anything that we do militarily, we have an order, all right? There's operations orders, fragment orders, warning orders, but they all follow the same format. There's 5 paragraphs: a situation, a mission, an execution, service and support, and then command and control, all right? So I'm going to focus on the first 3. We've talked about some of these things already this month on our Life on Mission sermon series. The first paragraph is the situation. Okay? We've talked about that right about. What is the situation when life on mission? The situation is this. God is at work all the time to reconcile a lost and dying world to Him. If you don't know who Christ is, He's fighting for you. Let that sink in just a minute. If you don't know who Christ is, if you haven't made a decision to follow the Lord as your personal Lord and Savior, He's fighting for you. He loves you. So that's the situation. That's that first paragraph. And when you think about it, you've heard testimonies of these missionaries and stories like that. When you think about it, there's a common thread. There's a common thread in all the testimonies and accounts of people being reconciled to Christ. And that thread is this. When they made the decision to follow Christ, either right when that happened or right before, or something happened right in that time frame where Christ became real to them. Hold on to that because we're going to revisit that after we get into Scripture here in just a minute. And there's, and I'm going to give you this. I'm not a mathematician or a chemist, but I'm going to put a formula up here. You guys probably never come to this church again. It's math involved. And you may not be able to see it. If you can't see it, I'll read it. I can't talk and write at the same time. I'm barely walking and chew bubble gum at the same time, but all right. It says perception of is multiplication, of truth equals reality. All right. So again, situation, mission, and we talked about this, Matthew 28, verses 19 and 20. Therefore, go and make disciples. Go and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Teach these new disciples to obey all the commands I have given you, and be sure of this, I will walk with you always, even to the end of the age. All right? So again, so that's the mission, or the situation and the mission that we've got. He's told all of us to go. That's our mission. And today we're going to talk about the execution, how to mission. And these are things that I want you to keep in the back of your head. When people get reconciled to God, Christ becomes real to them, this equation plays a part in that. So, if you would, and I'm going to read this and partly paraphrase. This is 1 Kings chapter 18. Give everybody just a minute to get there. It'll take me a minute to get there. So this is now we're talking about missionary work. You know, when Jesus came, Jesus died on the cross and rose again for us, and He made a new covenant with mankind. All right. Now this is an Old Testament story, but it illustrates. It has some very good illustration in it, so that's why I'm going there for this. And I know if the Old Testament was as irrelevant as a lot of people count it today, then Jesus wouldn't have talked about it so much when He was on this earth. So it still has its nuggets of good stuff that you need to hold on to and you need to pay attention to. So 1 Kings chapter 18. I want to pick up. So backstory. Jezebel's been killing all the prophets of God. Elijah's the only one left. All right. So Ahab is looking for Elijah. So they do face to face, and Elijah called Ahab and his family a bunch of troublemakers, and then he told him in 1 Kings chapter 18, starting in verse 19, he said, "Now summon all Israel to join me at Mount Carmel, along with the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah, who were supported by Jezebel." So Ahab summoned all the people of Israel and the prophets to Mount Carmel. Then Elijah stood in front of them and said, "How much longer will you waver, hobbling between two opinions?" Now listen to this. "If the Lord is God, follow Him. But if Baal is God, then follow him." And then when he asked that, it says, "But the people were completely silent." How many times have you witnessed somebody and presented the truth and just deer in the headlights? Right? It's been happening a long time. All right, so don't feel bad. Then Elijah said to them, "I'm the only prophet of the Lord who is left, but Baal has 450 prophets." And then what he did, he set the stage. He said, "All right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to get 2 bulls, build 2 altars, all right? All you guys can grab a bull, you pick the bull, you chop him up, put it on the altar, don't set it on fire. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm not going to set it on fire. We'll call out to our gods. Whatever altar lights up, that is the true God. And everybody was in agreement. All right, so there's a little paraphrasing. I'll continue. So picking up 23, it says, "Now bring 2 bulls, the prophets of Baal may choose whichever one they wish, and cut it to pieces, lay it on the wood of their altar, but without setting it on fire. I will prepare the other bull, lay it on the wood of the altar, but not set fire to it. Then call the name of your God." That's the part I just paraphrased. I'm sorry. And 25 says, "Then Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, you go first. There are many of you. Choose one of the bulls and prepare it, and call the name of your God. But do not set fire to the wood." So they prepared one of the bulls, placed it on the altar, and called on the name of Baal from morning until noontime, shouting, "O Baal, answer us!" But there was no reply of any kind. And they danced, hobbling around the altar they had made. About noontime, Elijah began mocking them. And I love this. I'm going to do the new Kyle version of this. Elijah, he started mocking. He said, "Hey, you guys are going to have to shout louder. Surely he's a god. Maybe he's daydreaming." He said, "Or maybe he's away on a trip, or he's asleep. We should go wake him up." So what'd they do? They shouted louder. Following their normal custom, listen to this, they cut themselves with knives and swords until the blood gushed out. They raved all afternoon until the time of eating sacrifice, but still there was no sound, no reply, no response. Because they were praying to no one. Then Elijah called to the people and said, "Hey guys, come over here. Come over here." Let's see. They all crowded around him, and as they did, he repaired the altar of the Lord that had been torn down. He took 12 stones, one to represent each of the tribes of Israel, and he used the stones to rebuild the altar in the name of the Lord. He dug a trench around the altar large enough to hold about 3 gallons. He piled wood on the altar, cut the bull into pieces, laid the pieces on the wood. Then he said, "Hey, go fill 4 jars full of water and dump it on the sacrifice on the altar." So they did. When they did that, he said, "Hey, do it again." So they did. Then he said, "Hey, humor me. Go do it a 3rd time." So they did. They did it until the trench was full of water. Find my place. Then after they'd done this, at the usual time of offering, and this is picked up in verse 36, at the usual time of offering the evening sacrifice, Elijah the prophet walked up to the altar and prayed, "O Lord, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, prove today that you are God in Israel and that I am your servant. Prove that I have done all this at your command. O Lord, answer me so these people will know that you, O Lord, are God and that you have brought them back to yourself." What was that? What was the situation? The situation paragraph, the first one. God is at work reconciling the people of this planet to him. Even in the Old Testament. It says right there that you have brought them back to yourself. Immediately, fire of the Lord flashed down from heaven and burned up the young bull, the wood, the stones, and the dust. It even licked up the water in the trench. And when all the people saw it, they fell face down on the ground and cried out, "The Lord, he is God. Yes, the Lord is God." I have the picture. Go ahead and put the first picture up there. Does anybody remember this? Raise your hand. Remember this. All right. I thought I could just tell a story, but I knew there'd be some people that are kind of left out of it. All right. What color is it? I got a blue and black. That's some of you know the answer, but hey, what color is it? Hey, I was on that team right there, white and gold. And I normally don't get caught up in social stuff. My wife can attest that I just get frustrated every time I look on Facebook or something. It's just people, I don't know. Anyway, but I got caught up in this one. And in the heat of all this, if you're on the blue and black team, I was ready to pop you in the mouth. That was white and gold. All right? Show the next picture. It's blue and black. That's the actual, what does it say? That's the source photograph. That's out of the magazine. It's blue and black. You gotta go back to the original. But I had to argue someone until I was blue in the face that it was white and gold. All right? Hey, remember our formula? Truth is a constant. It doesn't change. In our spiritual walk, that truth is Jesus Christ. He always has been. He is right now, and He always will be. He's a constant. The truth in that situation was that dress is black and blue. That's the truth. This is not a constant. My perception is that that dress is white and gold. And I believe it. It's my perception. That's my perception of what the truth is. And that equals my reality. To me, real life, it's white and gold. That's real to me. It may not be real to you. You may know the truth. But I was ready to pop somebody in the mouth every time I said it's black and blue. So again, today, we're talking about how to mission. We've been talking about life on mission. Today we're talking about how to do it. That third paragraph, the execution paragraph. We know what the situation is. We know what the mission is. How do we do it? Hey guys, this is it. Remember I said in all the accounts and testimony where people have made a decision to follow Christ, something happened, and that common thread, that something was Christ, became real to them? Hey, that's what we got to do. That's how we execute the mission that we've been given. We have to make people's reality mesh with truth. We're not going to do that unless we understand that people's perception of what this is, of what truth is, has an effect on their reality. So going back to the scripture here, these prophets of Baal, hey, I'm not going to self-mutilate for something that I don't think is real. Does everybody understand that? Would everybody agree with that? I'm not going to take knives and cut my arms open until the blood gushes out for something I don't believe in. These people were living a lie. They had been fooled. Their reality was that Baal was a real thing. That was real to them. Real enough for them to cut themselves and dance around crazy at an altar begging for it to catch on fire. Elijah changed their perception. When what they did wouldn't work, Elijah showed them the truth. And then their perception of that truth, right there in the last verse, the Lord, He is God. Yes, the Lord is God. Their reality linked up. Does that make sense? I mean, does that make sense? So that was the story in the Old Testament. I'm going to share a quick testimony with you guys, and I'll try to be brief about it. In February 2013, we were celebrating, my wife and I were celebrating Valentine's Day on Saturday as opposed to the 14th, which is on Friday. That's when we knew everything would be packed on Friday. It was abnormally cold that night. We were driving home, passed a guy on the side of the road. He had a lot of luggage. I'm not talking metaphorical. I'm talking he had a trunk he was dragging behind him the size of two of these chairs. It was obvious that he was not just out on an evening stroll. So we passed him. I looked through every mirror. God, you know what you're supposed to do. And I'm watching in the rear mirror, and I'm like, yeah, I know. So I looked at Courtney and I said, I got to go pick him up. Okay. So I turned around and picked him up right there by Kroger's in Cookville. Took him to where he had to go. I said, hey, I know you're not from here. It's obvious. Here's my number. Call me if you need anything. All right? Said, okay. Left him. You know, I thought that was it. So that was Saturday. Thursday, I got a call. But that night was the night that my wife and I met Will Tricarico. Those of you laughing know exactly what I'm getting ready to share with everybody. Anyway, So Thursday, I got a call. I was at work, and he said, "Hey man, I need to know somewhere to go where I can use the internet." Thursday was the night that our small group met. I said, "Hey, well, let me pick you up after work. You can come over to my house. You can use the internet. We'll feed you, and we have a Bible study that we do, and you can just hang out for it." You know, I'm trying to get my numbers up, so hey, I'll take them any way I can get them. And he said, "Okay." So I went picked him up after work, took him over to the house. We were at the house, and he got a call. He said there was a police officer at the place he was staying. Half time of years, this thing doesn't stay on. He said there's a police officer at the place he was staying there, and the people there were putting all the stuff in trash bags and sitting outside. So I called Cookville Dispatch, confirmed there was an officer over there. And they were, in fact, putting stuff on the sidewalk, so I went over there. I said, you make sure he stays right there. I'll have Will over there in just a minute. So, got over there, cop's still there, and sure enough, they had all this stuff on the sidewalk. There was tornadoes warnings out that night. It's 11 o'clock. I don't remember if you guys remember right around Valentine's Day a couple years ago. The weather was not good. So, Will, he said, "Man, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't got nowhere to go." I said, "Well, I'll tell you what you're going to do. You're going to put your stuff in my truck. You're going to come back to the house. Figure it out." So we got back over to my place. It was time for small group. And at the time, the River was doing a church-wide Bible study. All right, and there was a little video premise, and then you got to the Word and stuff like that, and had discussion. So we started the video, and Will, and I know you guys remember, Will's like, "Wait, stop." Will, it became very apparent that he was not a believer. He wasn't a believer, and he was concerned. He felt like we were getting ready to make him drink Kool-Aid or something. And he didn't understand why my wife and I were being so nice to him. We offered a home to him. It didn't make sense. And to us, it was obvious because he didn't know. And he didn't know. He didn't know. It was obvious he wasn't a believer. So we answered what questions we could. We took him through Scripture. We just met everything that he had with love. An agape, Christ-like love. And when the small group was over, everybody said bye to him. They had to get home before the tornadoes came. And they said, "Hey, God bless you, man. You know, if there's anything you need, yada, yada, yada." That night, Will was so uncomfortable, he wanted to get out. He wanted to go sleep at the Greyhound bus station because he was freaked out. And I tried to get him a ticket. I got on the internet machine. Greyhound's website's great. Couldn't get a ticket. I said, "Will, just stay here the night, and in the morning I'll take you wherever you want to go. But the weather's terrible. Just stay here, and we'll figure it out more." So reluctantly, after a while, after some convincing, he stayed. The next morning, he got up and said, "Hey, I was thinking about what you're saying. I'll stay here a couple days if that's okay, and I'll figure out, where I can go and stuff like that." So that's fine. So that weekend, that was a Thursday night. So that weekend, invited him to go to church. Went to the River Main campus. That evening, went over to Knox Chapel, and he went to both of them, and then Monday happened, and life was normal. Monday night, I was in the basement. He said, "Hey, you know what? I really enjoy church." That was not the same Will Tricarico Thursday. So we as Christians, so we know this situation, we know our mission. We're talking about how to execute it. But one important thing while you're doing this execution of this mission that you've been given is knowing when you need to act. Listen, God is not a God of busy work. If you're burnt out in whatever you're doing in your church or whatever, and if you're just coming up with stuff to do, stop. And ask God to show you what you need to do. When you see God moving, that is your cue to get involved. So I saw God moving in Will. It was obvious. It didn't take a rocket scientist or some theological genius to figure out that this was a different attitude he had than Thursday night. And I jumped on the opportunity. I said, "Will, would it be okay if I discussed with you a little further what we were talking about Thursday night?" And he said, and I quote, "I'll never forget it. I would love for you to." That's a big deal. So I took him down Romans Road. You know, I'm not brilliant. I did what I knew to do. And took him down Romans Road, and he gave his life to the Lord on the couch of my basement that night. Something happened. What's that common thread that I said is in all these testimonies, everybody making these decisions to follow Christ? What's the common thread? Christ became real to them. Thursday night, he was exposed to the truth, and it scared the fire out of him. He was scared. But when he went to church Sunday morning and Sunday night, he saw there wasn't just a handful of people, of these crazies, that were loving on him. It became real to him. Is everybody see where I'm going with this? Play. Behave.
No.
Does everybody see where I'm going with this? He saw what he at first perceived as something crazy, as something loony. He saw that it wasn't, his perception was wrong. And it changed when he saw that it was real. And then his reality then matched up with what the truth was. And he knew that God was real. He knew that the love that was being shown to him was something real, and he wanted to know more about it. And it changed his life. That is how you do mission. It plays on this. Now listen, you are not going to go out and change the world. Don't have some false, idea. I'm going to go out and do this. God has to be in it. All right? I could talk to Will until I was just blue in the face. And unless God was moving, nothing would have happened. There was nothing that I did. God did that. But He uses us. All right? He uses us. But it's important that we know I'm not going to take a screwdriver and try to drive a nail with it. You can say what that is. That's stupid. That's not what that tool is made for. All right? All we have to be is an empty, willing vessel for God to use us. A tool. All right? But He's not going to... And if He hasn't called you to do something that you feel like you should be called to do, don't get frustrated. He's got something for you to do. But no matter what you're doing, it's important that you understand as we're trying to reach out to people, as we're trying to live this life on mission, whether it's across the country or in our backyard or across the street, hey, you have to reach people where they're at. And make their reality mesh with truth. But you don't have to set altars on fire. All right? Chances are, none of us are ever going to do that. None of us are ever going to chop up a bowl and set it on some wood and throw some water on it. It's probably not going to happen. All right? And that's okay. There was a time and place for that, and that was in the Old Testament with Elijah. All right? You don't have to invite a stranger into your home. You may. And Will was not the first stranger we invited to our home. FYI. There's 3 others at the same time. It was crazy. That may not be what you're called to do, and that's fine. But if you think to yourself, how do you make Christ real to you? When I was in Iraq, if I got double bubble in a care package, you know what I did with it? I gave it to Joe, or I threw it away. She chewed a piece of bubble gum for weeks. Out of a shoebox. Christ became real to her in a shoebox. You don't have to set stuff on fire. You don't have to invite strangers in your home. You don't have to send a shoebox to anybody. Hey, the gentleman on the road to Emmaus, Jesus came and walked with them. And they were just shooting the breeze, talking about current events of the day. You know, what just happened with this man called Jesus, probably the election that was going on, stuff like that. And then Jesus sat down and ate with them, and then He became real to them. They realized who He was, and He vanished. He said, hey, didn't our hearts burn? So again, how you mission. So what we're talking about today, how do we mission? We know the situation, we know the mission. How do we do it? You got to make Christ real. You got to keep this in mind. And how you do that varies. That's where the being obedient comes in. And a lot of it is as simple as just sharing this. on several occasions. In the book of Acts is one example. Peter just shared the gospel, and thousands were changed because Christ became real to them when he shared this. Because this, in the beginning was the Word, Jesus was the Word, Jesus is the truth. This is real. This is a book and paper. But what are written on these pages is real life. It's living. So to summarize, how do you mission? All right? There's three things. One I believe is more important, and you may disagree with me, but one I believe is more important than the other two. But the first one is this. Revelation 12:11, share your testimony. Nobody can refute that. It's your testimony. Nobody can take that away from you. Nobody can disagree with it. Or they can disagree with it, but you know what? Hey, it's your testimony. Number two, and we've talked about it a couple times, Matthew 28:19. Go share this. Go share the word. That's our mission. That's a great commission. Go. Tell people about it. The most important, and I think the most valued, is loving each other, loving your neighbor. That's John 13:34. People, that's what scared Will. He saw how we were treated. He didn't get it. It scared him. Hey, the first two I said, share your testimony, share the gospel. Yes, very important. Very important. Especially when you start getting to deeper levels of sharing Christ with somebody. But if I didn't have this on and I was standing over there talking to Tim and you were over there, you'd have no idea what we were saying. But you know what? If you were standing over there and you saw Tim drop something, I helped him pick it up. You can see that. Loving each other. People see that. You can see that across a room. Changed Will's life. Hey, that shoebox? Rita, we probably wouldn't have met Rita the other day if somebody didn't send that shoebox. There's toothpaste in that shoebox. Her dad thought it was candy, and I still think that's funny. But it changed their life. Loving each other. When we love each other, it's imperative that we understand this and that we actually try to practice loving each other. Because when we do that, Christ becomes real to people. And when Christ becomes real to people, when something clicks and people understand that there's a heaven and hell, and there's a God who loves us and he sent his son to die for us, that's my son right there misbehaving. Right there. You turn around and look, it's okay. I cannot fathom hanging him on a tree for any one of you. In fact, if somebody tried to put him on a tree, I would die very quickly trying to stop it. The God that created the universe, listen, that created everything that we know exists, and even the stuff that we don't know exists, loved you enough to send his son to hang on a tree. When that becomes real to people, when people get that, their life changes. That is how we mission. So I challenge you guys today. We've had this whole sermon series, Life on Mission. We've met with missionaries. We've talked about our brothers and sisters that are in the congregation that have gone on mission. John's talked about what mission is. Today we talked a little bit about how to do it. Hey, today I challenge you to do it, to execute. Do that execution paragraph. You know what the situation is. You know what God's called you to do. You know the mission. Hey, do it. Make Christ real to people. Turn that white and gold dress into black and blue. I still think it's white and gold. Anyway. We have a baptism. The water's still in there. That's good. And so we're getting ready to see Christ became real to Lynn, to this lady, and she's going to show us what the next step is. And I'm going to turn the service over to Brother John right now. And guys, hey, before he gets up here, if you have questions, if Christ has recently become real to you, or you have questions about it, come see me, come see John, come see Tim, Chad, Jerry is somewhere, I'm sure, somewhere. But if he's become real to you, Share with other people. Talk to somebody about it. Okay? Thank you.
Guys, please.